In a cafe where silence had become the norm, one millionaire treated the staff like they owed him something. Bradley Knox, a man who believed his money gave him the right to disrespect anyone. But Kiara, a new waitress, stood her ground with a response so powerful the entire room fell silent and everything changed. Just wait until you hear what happened next and how justice, in the end, came out on top. Morning light spilled into Maple and Vine, painting the brick walls with a soft amber glow. The cafe was a haven for locals, students hunched over laptops, elderly couples sharing quiet moments, nurses finishing night shifts with hands still smelling faintly of sanitizer. The space had a rhythm, a calm heartbeat. But that morning, something was off. It wasn't the coffee or the playlist humming softly through the speakers. It was him. In the very center of the cafe, seated like he owned the place, was a man who somehow made silence feel loud. Bradley Knox. Mid-40s, designer suit, polished loafers that had never seen a puddle, and a voice that didn't know how to whisper. His phone was on speaker, as always, and his words sliced through the room like a knife. "No, Jerry, I don't care if it's the kid's birthday. If they miss the deadline, fire the whole damn team." He wasn't yelling for volume, he was yelling for sport. People shifted uncomfortably. A woman near the window lowered her book. A student paused her typing mid-sentence. No one said anything, of course. No one ever did. Because Bradley wasn't just any customer. He was the kind who tipped too much and respected too little. A tech millionaire, investor, and self-declared disruptor. The kind whose name popped up in articles with words like visionary, brilliant, and, more often, controversial. He didn't come to Maple and Vine for the coffee. He came to remind the room that he could buy it 10 times over. Every Tuesday morning, like clockwork, he sat at the same corner table and made the whole cafe feel smaller. And then it happened. A young busboy, no older than 20, accidentally bumped the edge of Bradley's table while clearing a tray. A ceramic plate wobbled and fell, shattering loudly on the floor. Bradley didn't even look up. No flinch, no glance, no acknowledgement. He just kept talking. Then pull the plug on the whole contract. If they don't bleed for the project, they don't deserve the payout. He wasn't yelling for volume, he was yelling for sport. People shifted uncomfortably. A woman near the window lowered her book. A student paused her typing mid-sentence. No one said anything, of course. No one ever did. Because Bradley wasn't just any customer. He was the kind who tipped too much and respected too little. A tech millionaire, investor, and self-declared disruptor. The kind whose name popped up in articles with words like visionary, brilliant, and, more often, controversial. He didn't come to Maple and Vine for the coffee. He came to remind the room that he could buy it 10 times over. Every Tuesday morning, like clockwork, he sat at the same corner table and made the whole cafe feel smaller. And then it happened. A young busboy, no older than 20, accidentally bumped the edge of Bradley's table while clearing a tray. A ceramic plate wobbled and fell, shattering loudly on the floor. Bradley didn't even look up. No flinch, no glance, no acknowledgement. He just kept talking. Then pull the plug on the whole contract. If they don't bleed for the project, they don't deserve the payout. The cafe held its breath. Even the espresso machine seemed to pause. The busboy knelt quickly, cheeks flushed, trying to gather the pieces. The manager, Ted, stood frozen by the counter, unsure whether to help or disappear. Everyone watched, and everyone said nothing. Except one person. A waitress near the register, new face, confident posture, had stopped in her tracks. Her gaze wasn't lowered, she was looking straight at him. And in that moment, the story quietly shifted. She had only been working at Maple and Vine for 4 days. Her apron was still stiff from the new fabric. Her name tag, printed slightly crooked, read Kiara. She moved with the grace of someone who had seen worse, and didn't flinch easily. Probably mid-20s, eyes calm, shoulders straight. The kind of presence that didn't announce itself, but somehow made you straighten up when she walked by. Bradley, of course, noticed none of that. He was too busy waving $100 in the air like it was a remote control for human behavior. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, snapping his fingers without even looking up. "I need that almond milk whatever you call it, and smile while you're at it. I'm not paying for attitude." His voice landed heavy, sharp. The cafe went still again. But Kiara didn't move. She didn't hurry. She didn't frown. And, most importantly, she didn't smile. Instead, she took one slow step forward, and then another. When she reached his table, she set down her tray, looked him right in the eye, and said, "Sir, I'll be happy to serve you when you start treating people like they're human beings." A spoon clinked against a saucer in the back. Someone near the pastry case whispered, "Did she just?" Bradley blanked. As if for the first time, he realized someone wasn't playing by his rules. He stood up. He was taller than her by almost a foot, louder too. He leaned in, the way people do when they want to make you small. "Excuse me? Do you have any idea who I am?" Kiara didn't flinch, not even a breath. "I know exactly who you are," she said, voice steady. "You're the guy who thinks a bank account gives you permission to be cruel." That hit. For a second, it looked like he might laugh. And he did. A short, sharp sound. "I built 3 companies before you even had a resume. You'll be lucky if you're not mopping floors by tomorrow." There it was, the power play, the warning shot, and the cafe, as always, held its breath. They'd seen him crush people with words, seeing young employees leave the shift early in tears after one of his talks. This was the part where people usually folded. But Kiara? She smiled. Not the kind of smile he demanded, the kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are. "Then I guess you'll be the reason I own one tomorrow." You could feel the air change. Bradley stepped back slightly, unsure how to respond. No one in that cafe had ever seen anyone talk to him like that, and they never forgot the moment someone finally did. Bradley Knox didn't say goodbye. He didn't need to. The sound of his designer shoes stomping across the tile said it for him. He grabbed his phone, muttering something about lawsuits, incompetent staff, and calling the owner directly. The glass door swung shut behind him. Silence lingered. Then came the panic. Ted, the cafe manager, mid-50s, balding, sleeves rolled to his elbows, rushed toward Kiara with the urgency of a man who thought his world was collapsing. "What were you thinking?" he whispered, voice strained. "That guy owns half this block. He could get us shut down before the coffee even cools." Kiara looked at him, but said nothing. She didn't need to. The moment had already spoken. Then something happened. Something Ted didn't expect. Something no one did. A soft clap echoed from the far side of the cafe. Then another, and another. A young woman in scrubs, still wearing her hospital ID, stood up and applauded. A man in a hoodie followed, then an elderly woman with silver curls and a cane. Soon, the whole cafe was on its feet, clapping, not loud, not theatrical, but real. A kind of applause that felt like it had been held in for years. The elderly woman stepped forward. She reached out, lightly touched Kiara's wrist. "I've been coming here for 6 years, she said, voice gentle but firm. That was the first time someone told him no. Kiara exhaled, just once. No speeches, no tears, just a quiet, full breath, like she'd finally allowed herself to feel everything that had just happened. At table 7, a college student had been filming the entire scene. They posted the clip online with a single caption. "This woman just stood up to a millionaire bully. Respect." The video hit 200,000 views by lunch. By dinner, 3 million. By morning, headlines. Local news called first, then national outlets, then The View. And the world began to see what that little cafe saw that morning. Someone who didn't raise her voice, but raised a standard. Sponsorship offers flooded her inbox. A startup accelerator offered Kiara a $50,000 grant to launch her own cafe, one that would stand for dignity, respect, and fair employment. And Bradley? Well, the ripple reached him too. 3 former employees, emboldened by Kiara's stand, stepped forward. They shared stories, emails, recordings. An official investigation was launched. The company's board issued a statement. His stock dropped 11% in just 7 days. But more than that, his silence grew louder. For once, Bradley Knox was no longer the loudest man in the room. And all it took was one waitress who refused to shrink. 2 months later, a new sign appeared on a quiet corner of the neighborhood, just 3 blocks from Maple and Vine. The letters were simple, hand-painted in deep green. Haven. There was no neon, no flashy slogans, just a small chalkboard outside that read, "Everyone deserves a place to feel seen." Inside, the smell of fresh coffee mingled with the warmth of something harder to define. Safety, maybe, or respect. The baristas paid more than a living wage. The rules, clear and posted on the wall. No yelling, no entitlement, no exceptions. There was a table near the window set aside for people with sensory sensitivity. Low light, soft cushions, noise-canceling headphones nearby. Next to the pastry counter stood a bookshelf, stocked not with bestsellers, but with job listings, housing resources, and free resume guides. The most popular drink on the menu? The Comeback Blend. At the grand opening, the line wrapped around the block. Regulars from the old cafe showed up early, some holding flowers, others just curiosity. Nurses still in scrubs, students from the local college, retirees who used to quietly sip tea in the corner. Even Ted was there, wearing a gray baseball cap with Haven embroidered in small white letters. And at the front stood Kiara. She wasn't dressed like an owner, just jeans, sneakers, and a heart that hadn't changed. Her hands trembled a little as she stepped up to speak, but her eyes steady. "I didn't plan any of this," she began, voice soft but sure. "I was just tired of watching good people shrink every time someone with power walked through the door. So I stood up." She paused, "and I found out I wasn't alone." The crowd didn't just applaud. They stood. Not because of the cafe, but because someone reminded them what courage looks like in everyday clothes. And in that moment, Kiara wasn't the girl who clapped back or the viral waitress. She was a spark. The kind that catches quietly and changes the air in the room forever. Because courage doesn't need a stage. It doesn't wear a suit, and it doesn't come from a bank account. It comes from a decision. The decision to say, enough. And sometimes that's how change begins, with one voice and a place called Haven.